Thanks, Dave. Well, good morning. I've never taught this class in public before. I do this class like companies will have me out to do private groups, like for their company or something like this. So this is brand new. You guys haven't seen this before. So this isn't about how to use Xactimate, like the mechanics of how to enter data and do that sort of thing. This is how to leverage it so that you can greatly increase your profits. So who in here would like to, that's a stupid question, isn't it? Who here would like to increase their profits, legitimate profits? Who's not going to raise their hand no matter what I ask? So anyway, let's get started. So the name of my company is Level the Playing Field, and our objective, can we agree that if you're dealing with insurance adjusters, that it's not really a level playing field out there? Especially not for the consumer. I mean, the adjusters go out and they do these claims all day long, every day. And how often does a consumer ever have an insurance claim? Once, twice in their life. And so it's not a level playing field. So I wrote a book. Anybody here have a copy of my book, Level the Playing Field? So what do y'all think about it?
Great.
Now I'm going to be on the spot here. Anyone else?
Outstanding.
So the reason why I wrote the book is to teach you guys and consumers what's actually going on, because most contractors, unless you've worked as a claims adjuster, which I have, unless you've worked as a claims adjuster, you don't really know what's going on with the claims adjusters and how they think, what motivates them. We're going to talk about that today too. How adjusters think and what motivates them. So my background is 15, 20 years ago, I was a contractor just like you guys. Started out as a roofing contractor, and I quickly realized that I could pick up the general contractor's overhead and profit much easier if I was a general contractor. So I shifted to being a general contractor, and so I could pick up the O&P a lot easier. And so I did that for a bunch of years, and things got slow here in DFW, and there were 3 hurricanes that hit Florida, one right after another, about 15 years ago. Y'all remember that? And I had my adjuster's license, not because I wanted to be an adjuster, because I didn't. I got my adjuster's license because when I met adjusters up on a roof, the ones that were borderline, I could pull out my license and say, hey, look, I'm an adjuster too. And back then I could get the borderline roofs bought. You know, oh, you're an accountant. I'm an accountant. You know how that camaraderie kind of thing, you know? And so that's the reason why I originally got my license. And things had gotten so slow here in DFW, there hadn't been any storms. I was doing a couple bathrooms and kitchen remodels. Problem with bathrooms and kitchens, you can make money with bathrooms and kitchen, can't you? Problem with those is you're in a woman's nest for like 2, 3, 4 weeks, and you wear out your welcome real quick, don't you guys? Yeah. You can make some good money doing that if you know how to price them. Anyway, so the 3 hurricanes hit. I had my adjuster's license, so I went out and I worked that storm. And then I worked Wilma, then I worked Katrina, then I worked all those different hurricanes. And I started doing field training for adjusters. And I quickly realized how abysmal they are at scoping property losses. I mean, they don't know what they're doing because no one's ever taught them. So, you know, build a better mousetrap. So I thought, I'm going to start my own school. So I started a school called the CIA Training Academy, Catastrophe Insurance Adjuster. Catchy name, people can remember it. And so I was licensing and training adjusters. And I did that for a bunch of years. And then I read a book. For you guys who are taking notes, I want you to write down the name of this book because I want you to get it and read it. It's very enlightening. It's called Delay, Deny, Defend. Delay, Deny, and Defend by Jay Feinman. Jay Feinman, F-E-I-N-M-A-N. I met the guy. He's a real nice fellow. Very.
You got to get them quick. I bought them on Amazon yesterday, and there's only a few left.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Buy them quick.
So, Jay is a Rutgers professor of insurance law. He teaches insurance law at a university. And what this book says is that the insurance companies have gone from paying 70 cents on the dollar. For every dollar they collect, 20 years ago, they paid out 70 cents in claims proceeds. And they still made a decent profit. Now they're paying out 40 to 50 cents off of every dollar collected. Now, what kind of margins are you talking about going from like 30% left over after expenses versus 50 or 60%? That's not doubling your profits. That's like insane profits. Do you know that the insurance industry made a profit after Hurricane Katrina that year? Did you know that? They made a profit that year. You would think that year they would lose money. Nope. They just weren't insanely profitable. So I read this book and I come to the realization the insurance industry doesn't want their adjusters to be thorough and to scope property losses accurately and account for all the damage. They want them to do what they're told. That's a big difference, because I was teaching adjusters in my school the I word. Anybody here know the I word? Indemnify. What does that mean? Indemnification is to make the consumer whole, right? So if you lost $100,000 in a storm or a fire or water loss, you get back $100,000 minus your deductible, your contribution, right? The new adjusters don't even know that word. They don't teach them that word. And I realized that I was wanting to be a change agent in that industry. I love doing adjusting. I was really good at it. You know, if you're good at something, you like doing that kind of work. And I come to the realization that I can't be a change agent in the insurance industry, so I said, fine. I'll go back to my roots and I'm going to teach contractors how to deal with these guys and how to get results. Because you can do it if you know how. Problem is that most contractors don't know how, because they don't know how an adjuster thinks. So we're going to talk about that this morning. So when I say win the claim game, does that mean put it to the man? No, that means if your consumer has a $20,000 loss, they're not getting $15,000, they're getting $20,000, not $25,000. We don't want to get them $1 more than they have coming, but we don't want to get them $1 less either. That's what I mean when I say win the claim game, is that they get a fair shake. What we at our company call a righteous outcome. What's right? So, real quickly, you know, the oldest strategy in war is what? Divide and conquer, right? So what kind of reputation do we as an industry have in the public's eyes? Well, Gallup poll did a poll a couple years ago, honesty and ethics in professions. Guess what profession had the #1 highest rating in honesty and ethics? Now, if you've already seen this before, don't say anything. Any guesses? So here's the list. They had people who were high or very high, low or very low, and average. 84% said nursing has high ethics and morals. Why do you think that nurses got such high?
Because the doctors don't.
Well.
Because my wife's a nurse.
Well, there you go. So nurses aren't in it for the money, ostensibly, right? That's what the public believes. They're in it for what?
Take care of people.
To help people. Isn't that what we do? Aren't we there to help people get their homes and their businesses back in like it was before? Aren't we there to help them? Is that the reputation that we have, though? So, nurses, 84%. Building contractors, this is the closest I found to us. Building contractors, high or very high, 25%. Wow, 25% say that we are honest and ethical. 75%, not so much. Could we use a makeover, as they call it? Yep. So part of the problem is that we, as an industry, we see each other as competition instead of brothers in arms. So any of y'all remember Aesop's fable of the oxen and the lion? No one. Okay, here's the fable, real quickly. As long as the oxen are tail to tail, when the lion comes to attack them, what do they get? Horns, right? Because they're tail to tail. They're a cohesive group. But if they start infighting and backbiting and separate from each other, then what do they get? Eaten. So as long as we're together as a cohesive group, and we see each other as brothers, a band of brothers, as opposed to our competition, do the insurance companies do that? No. They have conferences and they come together as a cohesive group. Lots of conferences. Big conferences and big money. And we're fragmented. Is there a problem here? Anybody seen the movie 300? 300, this is a true story. 300 guys took on a horde. See what you can do if you band together and you have good shields? Anybody familiar with the term koinonia? It's a Greek term for band of brothers. So if you're not a member of RCAT, or if you're here in the Dallas area, NTRCA, then why not? I am. And I'm not even a contractor anymore, and I'm a member of both. Because we want to be here for each other. So there's my preaching for the day. Oh, one more preaching thing. Be above reproach. What I'm going to teach works, but if you start doing what I'm going to teach on here today, because other contractors aren't doing what I'm teaching. If you start doing that, they're going to notice you, and they're going to know your company's name, because you're doing something very out of the ordinary compared to everyone else. That means you're going to have a target on your back. That means if you're not above reproach, they're going to be looking for some chink in your armor to exploit. I'm just telling you the truth. There's companies out there that they know these companies' names because they're doing things differently than everyone else. No adding to the truth, no stretching the truth. What's the third word in the phrase little white lie? Ooh, lie. Right? Anybody here ever told a little white lie? Come on. My hand's up. Why do we do that? Why do we do that? Because we feel like we have to, huh? How about being above reproach? How about doing the right thing every time? So there's my preaching for the day. All right? So, things to consider. All right. Everything that we're talking about today is predicated on the fact that you have a job with legitimate damage and a reasonable method of repair. It's a real job. If it's some little borderline thing that, I hope I can get this thing bought, and you know it's not really there, this stuff doesn't work. It has to be real damage. So, if you haven't got a copy of my book, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get a free copy of the ebook later on. At the end of the presentation, you can download it for free. You can take it to Staples, and for $20 you can have like a real physical book you can hold in your hand. Anybody here old school like me, you have to have a real book in your hand? Yeah. So for $20 you can get the thing printed. One of the smartest things I have in there, so back when I was contracting, you guys know, especially if you're going to do a big job, you do a pre-job conference. So you sit down with the consumer and you set expectations, right? Because if their understanding of how the job is going to unfold is this, and your understanding of their understanding is here, the difference between this and this is frustration and anger, isn't it? So you want to make sure that you set expectations so that they have accurate expectations of what to expect in the job, right? Then it occurred to me that we can do the same thing for claims adjusters. So how about we set expectations before the adjuster ever comes out there by asking a few questions. So if you've been to my classes before, I teach you guys, stop making statements and start asking questions. Isn't that what the best salesmen do? Ask questions? Yes, they're not making statements, they're asking questions, right? So we hone our skills and we learn how to start asking questions and turning statements into questions. It's not that difficult, is it? I mean, I'm doing it right now, aren't I? How difficult is it to learn this, to do this? You just practice, especially practice with your ladies, or for the ladies in the room, with your men, and just turn statements into questions, right? All right, so here's some questions that you can ask the homeowner before the adjuster ever gets there. Mrs. Jones, when you bought your insurance policy, did you bargain for a piecemeal roof? Isn't that what the adjuster's wanting to sell, a piecemeal roof? Right? So write down that word and start using that term, piecemeal roof, because the homeowners understand what that means. So Mrs. Jones, when you bought your policy, did you bargain for a piecemeal roof? What's she going to say? Nope. So if you have, there's a 50-50 chance, Mrs. Jones, actually 95%, but I'm not going to say that. A 50-50 chance that the adjuster you get is going to try and push a piecemeal roof on you. If you happen to get one of those 50-50 adjusters who's trying to push a piecemeal roof on you, what are you going to say? Are you going to take it? No. What is she going to say? No. So what are you going to say, Mrs. Jones? Do you see what you're doing? You're planning the idea that if the adjuster comes out there and is going to try and piecemeal the roof, I'm not going to take that. If you happen to get one of those 50-50 adjusters. If you say that there's a 95-100% chance, you've lost her. Why? She wants to believe the insurance company is going to do the right thing. She wants to believe that, right? She doesn't have our experience and know what's really going on out there. She hasn't got a clue. So you don't want to say 95-100% chance they're going to try and put a piecemeal roof on you because you've lost her. What you say is there's a 50-50 chance, and then when they do try to piecemeal the roof, she goes, oh great, I got one of those 50-50 roofers, right? Make sense? So what were the questions? When you bought your policy, Mrs. Jones, did you bargain for a piecemeal roof? No, I did not. If you happen to get one of those 50-50 adjusters, are you going to accept a piecemeal roof? No, I'm not. I'm glad to hear you say that, Mrs. Jones. Because if you said yes, then I'm going to tell you you'd have to find a different contractor. Because we're a professional contractor and we don't do piecemeal roofs. Do you? No. Right? So, Mrs. Jones, there's a really good chance that your adjuster is going to say the following. There's lots of companies out there that will do it for our price. You've heard that before? Let me let you read through the lines, Mrs. Jones. What they're really saying is there's lots of desperate contractors out there who don't give a rip about you that will do it for their scope. Price isn't the issue, Mrs. Jones. The piecemealed scope is the issue, isn't it? You have 65 line items and they have 35. Is the issue price? No, the issue is scope. They're leaving off a ton of legitimate and reasonable line items. So now when they say, see, Mrs. Jones, essentially, you've bought apples, and they're trying to give you oranges. Doesn't matter how many people are peddling oranges if you paid for apples. And if you say it like that, does that make sense to her? Does it matter how many people are peddling oranges if you paid for apples? No, it's irrelevant. I paid for apples and I want apples. I want the full scope. Make sense? If you do these pre-adjustment conferences and you set expectations, then the homeowner, when the adjuster comes in with their nonsense, can say, no, this is unacceptable. They're your secret weapon. The homeowner or the commercial property owner is your secret weapon. They say, no, I'm not going to accept this. So they're standing up for themselves. How refreshing would it be for the homeowner to stand up for themselves? Wouldn't that be nice? So all you have to do is set expectations so they understand what the heck is going on so they can stand up for themselves. Because they don't want a, what's the phrase? Piecemeal roof. All right, so those are called pre-adjustment conferences. I have an entire chapter in the book that goes over all this for you so you can read it and you can come up to speed. And as with everything, the very first time you went out as a salesman and you did a sales presentation, did you fall off your bicycle and skin your knee? Of course you did. You're not going to do it perfect the first time, just like you didn't, your very first sales presentation wasn't perfect. But what happens over time is you hone your skills. You get better and better and better, don't we? Same thing with this. Same thing the first time you met an adjuster compared to now. You're a lot better at knowing what to say, especially if you take my advice and you ask questions instead of making statements. Here, this is why you ask questions. If I make a statement, can you refute my statement? Sure. If I ask a question, can you refute my question? It's a question. How do you refute a question? Do you see the brilliance in that? The person asking the questions is also in control of the